If you can stop talking for 10 seconds, that would be fantastic. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
A lot of holidays the kids celebrate in school now. I got nieces and nephews, and I was looking over their calendar. You know, there's a holiday every day now. Take October 2nd, for example. October 2nd is Custodian's Day. And I didn't know that, you know? I have a friend who's a janitor, and I called him to ask him about that. And right there, that was my first mistake, saying the J word, janitor. He got very upset with me, you know? Told me, he's like, dude, I'm in the custodial arts, all right? It's called Custodian's Day for a reason. Custodian this, custodian that. I'd be like, bro, you don't even have custodian of your own kids, you know?
Hello, and welcome to Carnival Personnel Sideshow. I'm Jacques.
This is Biff.
And today, Biff and I, we have no Joe because he's doing the absolutely gut-wrenching. He sent me the photos. I have a tear in my eye just thinking of it. He packed up the Lyceum, and it's just
the man cave.
Yeah, it is tough. But to bring a ray of sunshine into our world, in this foray into stand-up comedy, as Joe has so politely asked me not to do. I've run across a couple folks who, are fun people and are funny. And, I've asked a bunch of them to come on the podcast. All of them have been smart enough to say no, except for my friend Mike, who is joining us now. Say hello to the nice people, Mike.
How's it going, people in the podcast world? I'm breaking my podcast cherry. This is the worst thing to say. I see it every time a first timer comes up to a microphone, and I just did it. So I'm going good already. Yeah.
So I met Mike a couple months ago doing the stand up at the Safe in Lowell, which I can't believe it was around for a little bit. And, right down the street, I'm driving an hour of Biff to like Worcester once or twice a week. And then somebody up there is like, oh, I was at a open mic in Lowell last week. And I'm like, wait, what? No, there's no open mics in Lowell. There's no basement in the Alamo. Come to find out there was, and Mike's been there for a while. So we're just going to get right into it. Mike, how the hell did you fall into the comedy world?
I've been doing comedy now for, I say about like a year and a half. I started a while ago before that too, but it just consisted of me like getting drunk and getting like blackout drunk and hopping on the train, making an ass out of myself at open mics. And that lasted like a month or two. So I don't really count that. I think that was in like 2015, something like that. But yeah, I've been at it consistently for like a year and a half now.
And you're a Lowell native?
Yeah. Born and raised in Lowell. I live at Drake now.
Oh, humble brag.
Yeah, I know.
Did you go to Lowell High? Or the
No, I graduated from Lowell Adult Education. That is the GED course.
Yeah, now I feel
at least you finished. Come on.
Yeah,
give yourself credit.
I know. Yeah.
As Chris Rock calls it, the good enough degree.
Exactly.
So Mike, like you just, because I know why I'm trying to embarrass myself and seek approval of strangers a couple nights a week and dank holes in the wall. But what's the catalyst for you? Were you like the funny guy at school, the funny guy at the office, the funny guy in the family? What made you say, you know what? Yeah, I see these guys on the HBO specials, and I think I can do that.
Um, I guess yeah and no. I mean, I guess I was always kind of funny or trying to be funny. I guess when I look back at it now, I wasn't always as maybe aware or self-aware as I should be. I don't know. I would kind of make an ass of myself or make other people the butt of jokes. That wasn't necessarily nice, but yeah, I don't know. I was always searching for a laugh. I'm not saying I was like bully or anything, but yeah, I was always seeking that approval. I don't know. It feels good making people laugh. I don't know. That's the way I always explain it. It's like when you get that reaction, I don't know. It's a good feeling.
And the first time you went up, break down like the day you went from thinking about going to a mic and actually going to a mic and putting your name on the list.
Oh God, it went bad. It was real bad. Like I said, it's the thing people always do. But the first thing I did when I went up there is I compared it to having sex. Oh, this is my first time. What else did I say? Something about it not even lasting the 5 minutes and something like that. I forget too. It was awful though, and I'm sure people humored me and fucking.
Right.
I don't know. It didn't go that bad that I wanted to quit, but then again, also I was, like I said, I was drinking at the time. I'm sober now, except for good old marijuana, but I used to drink a lot. I used to do a lot of drugs. I was addicted to drugs for very many years.
That first time though, did you like, you had that I'm gonna go do this, and then as soon as you step on stage or whatever, I mean, what was the thing that really surprised you the most? It's like, this didn't go the way I expected because kind of a thing. Is there something that, what was the biggest lesson you learned, I guess, in that first, stage event?
Preparation basically, and I
Yeah.
don't know what I thought I had. I definitely didn't have. Like, I don't know. I was a drugged out weirdo, so I just had notebooks of ramblings. Like, oh my God, I'm just delusional, It's like I've got to have hours of material here, Fucking what's 5 minutes? Jesus.
Do you remember the first show that you did that you drove home and you were like, I fucking did it. I killed it. This was great. This is something I can actually do. Do you remember when it was and why you think it went so well that time?
Yeah, I can kind of remember. It was an open mic in this town. Is right around. It's Billerica, the town that there's a jail in. And that was really like the first mic I went to. That's where I met the kid Ren, who runs the safe mic, and a bunch of the people I still chill with to this day. But yeah, there's a jail in the town, and I went up there, and I'd been there a few times before, and there's like a bunch of all local people there. I don't know, Billerica folk, and I get up there and trying to remember exactly what I said, but I was like, oh, I like coming to Billerica. My dad's from Billerica, so when I come down here, I get to see him. But we don't talk a lot, and he doesn't really communicate well. It's tough to communicate well behind that inch thick glass that we have to speak through. But I remember that, like, I don't know, in a town that probably half the people there fucking work at the jail or have someone there who does, and got like killed, and I was like, oh shit, so this is like, yeah, I think I can do this kind of.
And was that this time around, like in the last year and a half since you've been doing it consistent?
Yeah, was probably a few months in. Yeah.
That's great. And what is the best absolute bombing? Like, and you knew you were going to bomb, and you're like, you know what? This is just going to go sideways, but I'm just going to stand up here for my five and do it.
Oh, I don't know. I've done a few roast battles, and those are tough. Like, I've won some and lost some, but then again, like, I don't know. Going up there, you're losing. So there's like a competition thing either way. So like
Right.
A, you could be bombing, and then B, you're gonna get not chosen to move on too or win, you know? So it's
Right.
like a double strike, you know?
But that's
So,
that's
yeah.
a different mentality, right? That's a completely different animal, right? Because you're really reacting, right? You can't really prepare, right? Because like you
No.
might not even know who the other guy is, right? So
Not exactly that.
Right.
Exactly that. And the way we did it, it was sort of like a bracket type thing. So
wow,
like
yeah.
if
Ooh,
you
that's
do
tough.
win and move on, you know, you're like feeling good. You're like, yeah, here we go. And then you're like, fuck, I have no material. And
What is this guy?
that's kind of exactly
got-
what happened.
Yeah, I got nothing on this guy. You know.
Yeah. No, it was this girl,
Wow.
Emma, who she won the whole thing, and she
Oh.
mopped the floor with me, and yeah, that didn't feel great. Yeah, but she's awesome, and I wasn't prepared, and yeah.
You know, it's like, you know what they say in the playoffs, right? Like, you know, if you lose to the eventual Super Bowl winner, you know what? We lost to the Super Bowl winner, you know?
Yeah, exactly,
it's really that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you and everybody's had this, Mike, do you have a joke that you just worked on, you workshop, that you just, oh man, this is awesome, that just never landed? And on the other hand, have you had like a throwaway, something that's a bridge, a segue, kind of something off the cuff, you know what I mean, kind of an aside that just killed?
I'm sure I do. Shit. I started thinking about the second one more, but yeah, there was all sorts of there's one specific that I was trying to hammer in there, and fucking people hated it. I kept trying to do it. People of a certain age liked it. So it was this joke about there's a Patriots player. His name is Raekwon McMillan, and he's like, the year is 2023. He's like a 25-year-old man. So obviously he was named after the Wu-Tang Clan member Raekwon. And I went on about that. Have either of you guys ever heard of Immortal Technique?
No.
See, this is why the joke did hard. But he has a song. It was an early 2000s song, and it's a storytelling rap song. It's called Dance with the Devil, about this guy who wanted to join a gang, and he was like an orphan. And basically, long story short, the gang makes him rape a woman on the side of the road. This is a very popular song for people from the age 25 to 35, I'd say. And I don't know, at the end of the song, the big, like, the Sixth Sense ending of it is the character's name, Billy Jacobs. And the line in the rap song is, oh, what the fuck is it? I was there with Billy Jacobs, and I raped his mom too, because it's like the guy who was telling the story was part of the gang the whole time. I shouldn't have even got into this, but that was the punchline of the story.
See,
basically,
the problem
if I
with me
performed in front of any people who were under 20 or over 40, they're like, is this guy talking about raping someone's mother on stage? And then like a few 25, 30-year-old people would be like reacting decently in the back. And then I just realized one day, I'm like, oh, this isn't worth it. Like, fucking, the few people who do get it, it's not a good proportion.
See, like, the problem with me is that I listen to two kinds of music, heavy and metal. And so I've heard of the of the act, but I cannot name a song by them. You know, like, if I'm held at gunpoint, if they hold my child at gunpoint, I won't be able to name a song by them. So
he was of the era of LimeWire and stuff, where you would go download an MP3 that would say "Dance with the Devil" and a bunch of other stuff for early 2000s. But I was very into metal too, and still am. I was into everything, man.
So the age you are now, I mean, what is your demographic? Because you're I mean, every age is an awkward age for a comic. You're either too young, you're too old, you're too in the middle. You know what I mean? You're not the you're not the middle-aged dad guy, but you're not the kid coming out of high school. You know, when you're writing stuff, or do you have a demographic, or in your head, or are you just pretty much writing for yourself, and it's like, hey, this might be an evergreen that's across the board that a young old person gets, or am I niching myself into, a certain demographic here?
Wow. I really don't know. I never thought of it like that. I don't know. I thought of it in the sense where it's like, oh, a lot of these people at the mics are either like 10 years younger than me or 10 years older than me. Like, I don't know. There are some, I'm 35, but like, I don't know. I also am like a year and a half into comedy, and like most people, a year and a half in comedy are like 20 something years old. Like I should have been saying, oh yeah, let's do this, fucking. So I feel weird about it that way, but that's not even really like the audience I'm talking to. I'm just talking about my peers. But
I gotta say though, I salute you. I don't think the age matters. The fact that you jumped in there and is and doing it. I mean, that takes a lot of things, a lot of balls and a lot of courage and a lot of preparation and a lot of time. I mean, so yeah, age is age, right? But I mean, totally salute you for jumping into it, man.
It's funny when I go to these mics in my head. It's funny when I write something, I'm like, okay, this is definitely a Tom Papa joke. This is definitely a Jim Gaffigan. This is definitely an Anthony Jeselnik. Like in my head, sometimes it's a cadence. When you're writing, Mike, are there certain comics that like you not like that you're borrowing from, but that if you were going to be lumped in with 3 or 4 comics, maybe they're not your favorite comics, but your cadence, your delivery, your style, are there some people that you would say, okay, yeah, I'm kind of in this box, I'm kind of in that box, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I try to really write good jokes. Like, I don't know, some people are really gifted storytellers, and I wish I was like that. But I really like people like I love Dave Attell. Dave Attell is one of the best. I try to listen to him a lot because I don't know, when I listen to him, it's like he can still say whatever he wants, but it's in the formula of a setup and punchline and tag, and I don't know, he's just one of the best, I think. I try to emulate him kind of. Shit.
Is there a comic out there that's huge? It's a household name that you're like, that fuck? Nothing he or she has ever said is funny. I don't get it, but
hey, that's not a nice thing to say about Dane Cook.
No.
I mean, I know people say that all the time. When my management first came out to LA, Biff, she hadn't moved out yet, and I picked her up at LAX, and we drove straight to Vegas. She had no idea we were taking her to Vegas for a couple of days. Dude, I know people shit on that guy. At one point on the road, I had to pull over because it hurt. It was like his 2003 album or whatever. So, I know a lot of people, give him crap, and I can see why. But, dude, I'm telling you, I will always think favorably about Dane Cook because that it will flash me back to that moment when Ellen and I are driving, and it's like there is now it's become part of our lexicon. If Ellen and I will say, oh, back in the day, should be like, oh, you mean on Wednesday? Because that was part of, that was a riff that he had in there. But there's still nibbits from that road trip that we pull out. But what about you, Mike? Is there a comic that you're like, oh my God, how is that person huge? I don't get it.
Yeah, I hate to give like a stereotypical answer, but there's like a whole economy based on making fun of Brendan Schaub, which obviously I would never do because he's like a 275-pound piece of like carved stone heavyweight UFC fighter, and none of these people saying it online would ever say it to his face, nor would I. But yeah, man, it's pretty rough watching his shit.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do. I get that sometimes. And is there are there people you're like, oh man, I can't do that. That's not my thing. But that guy's fucking great. Like for me, I mean, when I started doing comedy in LA in the '90s. I was pre kind of an Anthony Jeselnik, like Derek Carr. I almost said Derek Carr.
Derek Carr.
What's his face? Jimmy Carr. the English guy who's kind of like Anthony Jeselnik, but
right.
with the English accent, it doesn't sound as horrible. And now in a million years, I wouldn't pull any of that off or want to pull any of that off. But those are guys I look at and I'm like, oh man, that's just beautiful. Like the way they craft that, like Anthony Jeselnik, the awful things that he says in just such a brilliant way sometimes. Like, I'm like, man, I will always have envy for that guy.
Well, that guy is just great at that misdirection, right? I mean, he leads you in that one direction, and then suddenly he takes a turn, and they just
But the turn's coming, and you know
the turn is coming.
It's going to be horrible, and it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
But you are never prepared.
No, that's the thing.
For exactly how hard a return and how awful it is, and you want to shower after each joke because you feel dirty for laughing. Yeah. But you got a guy like that, Mike, that you just look at and you're like, oh man, that's not my style, that's not me, but that guy fucking is great.
No one that came to mind in particular, but just like really great storytelling comics. Like I remember seeing some specials of, once again, no one's like coming to mind, but just like people form little mini specials out of just one bit, a 25-30 minute story some people do, and it's like, holy shit, like I could never fucking
when they do those guys, I mean, it's funny. We had a comic on our podcast a little while ago. A woman named Sally Mullen. She has a special on Amazon called Sleazy Does It. I went to see her. She was emceeing a show in LA a few months ago, and there was a guy who started off, and the premise was okay, and his opening bit wasn't weak. But what he did is he reverse engineered it back to the beginning, which made the slow start. I mean, he intentionally sandbagged the beginning of the set. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he didn't come out trying to throw a haymaker. Yeah. He came out not with a miss, but kind of, it's like, kind of. But he worked the entire 15-minute set backwards. You know what I mean? And he worked backwards to the beginning. And about halfway through the set, I'm like, this fucking motherfucker right here. Like you could see him doing it. It was like, it was literally like, Matt Damon and doing the math problem on the board. You know what I mean? It's like,
how about them apples?
This fucker right here. And then it's like, after I was talking to Sally, I'm like, oh God, he's great. She's like, he does that shit all the time. He does that shit all the fucking time, where it's like he just takes you for a ride, and before you know it, you turn here, you turn there, but as you're pulling back into the starting point, you're like, holy shit. That it was absolutely, absolutely brilliant. I really like smart comedy. Mike, what is the thing that you think you do best, and what is the thing you're like, God, in a year I gotta get better at this?
Just doing more off the cuff stuff. Like I can come up with some quick off the cuff stuff, but it doesn't always land. I guess I gotta try to make that filter in my head better. I mean, there is like a part that you just want to be unfiltered, but then also you gotta realize what's going to work or not.
And what are the kinds? Okay, I guess this is a cliche thing, but if we're having a conversation in a year, 2 years, are you doing this kind of, hey, let's see where this goes, or are you like, I kind of would like to be doing this at this point, I would kind of like to be here at that point? Do you have a map or a plan?
Not really. No, I don't have a plan. I mean, shit, it was weird with like 2 years ago thinking, oh, we might all have to think of different ways to get money and shit. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, the dream is I'd like to make a living off this. I don't know how feasible that is, but I mean, yeah, we all have delusions of grandeur too. I'd like to fucking, even though the Tonight Show don't mean shit anymore, but yeah, I want to go up and fucking do a set on the Tonight Show or have a Netflix special. But I mean, we all have.
You know what's funny is because everybody knows the guys who have the Netflix specials, which used to be the HBO specials and the touring guys. But what's a lot of people don't realize is, and we had a guy like this on the podcast a couple months ago. There's these guys that make decent, six-figure incomes being big local guys, being, and it's kind of funny. Like my sister turned me on to this one guy. I hope we have him on, the podcast. I had talked to him a while ago, a guy named Steve Bork. And my sister saw him at like a Knights of Columbus fundraiser for the Girl Scouts like 2-3 years ago. He ended up putting out a book. I ended up buying his book, and nothing to do about comedy. But it was funny. It was a really, and then I came to town. I was visiting, and she took me to see him. This is a guy who, I don't think he's ever done a national thing. I don't think he's, done a Last Comic Standing, all this kind of stuff. But you look at his website, and he does corporate gigs.
Yeah.
He does other, but he's constantly busy. And, I having got to know him a little and talk to him, I mean, he's a single dad supporting a family of 5, on 90% New England stuff. And then this guy that, Biff and I talked to on the podcast again, Mike, somebody I met doing, Greg Bogus's Mondo Comedy. He had this guy named Jim Colton on. And what was really funny, Biff and I have Jim Colton on, and I don't know if that name pops with you. Again, he's a guy who's been doing comedy for 30 years. His bread and butter is he does like one cruise a month, like a 5-6 day cruise a month. Yeah. But if his website, jimwatt.com, you follow him, Jim Watt on Instagram, and he's on a Tuesday night, like a couple weeks ago, a Tuesday night, he's doing some outside show down in like Scituate, and it's like, still doing all those grinds. Here's the fucked up thing, Mike. We went to college at the same place at the same time. Our cross never passed, but he had a hockey jersey. He had a hockey jersey in the back of his office. I'm like, oh, what's that? He goes, oh, it's my old high school thing. I played high school hockey at Bedford. I'm like, oh, well, we must have played against each other and then talk. Anyways, but do you see something like that as an option for yourself, being one of those, guys, once a month, Greg Bogus has a headliner, come through Mill Number 5, come through the Luna Theater, and it's always a Boston legend, like a Steve Bork, like a Jim Colton. Last month, it was Tony V, a guy who's been, a Boston club headliner since '82. You know what I mean? And these are guys doing it for 40 years, making real decent livings. Is that something you see for yourself, or do you see the Netflix special?
I don't plan on moving anytime soon. I mean, it might be my towny fucking mentality, but I've talked to friends like around the scene, whatever. And it's like, oh, dude, we got to move. You got to move. Like, don't you want to do this? Don't you want to move? And it's like, I mean, yeah, it'd be great. Like the thing you think of is either like LA or New York, but we're around like a top 5 city in the nation, and we're within driving distance from New York and Philly and then Jersey and fucking Connecticut, like all the big Northeast shit. We're within a day trip of, So if I did want to branch out my wings, if I get better, I don't need to move, really. I don't think. I mean,
no,
make connections and
yeah, no, I don't think. Like I said, all those guys didn't move, and I mean, and I think the net makes it a lot. How about the net? I did not put that on my list, but how do you feel about putting your stuff out there? I've seen some of your stuff on like Instagram and stuff. How comfortable do you feel like putting your bits online? I mean, do you feel like, hey, that's, on one hand, it gets me exposure. People know I'm a funny motherfucker. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, that's my best bit. I mean, who's going to come see me if I put that out there?
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't think I've done that really. If I have, I don't know. I don't even record all my sets really. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm a dummy and I'm up there like, oh, I got to look at my notes and all my notes are in my phone. And it's like, yeah, how am I recording myself now? So like if I did do something on stage that was good last week, I maybe didn't get it. But yeah, I don't know. That's always a weird thing to think about too. And then if you want to put the crowd work up, do it. But everyone puts up crowd work. I mean, if it's like some killer shit that works, but then again, just some random crowd work, it's like, man, I wouldn't want to put it up.
How are you with crowd work? Where do you rank that as far as one of your tools? Is it one of your more go-to resources in the toolbox? Is it something that you want to go to more or want to go to less? Where do you put your crowd work in your repertoire?
It's okay. I'm not that strong at it. I can do it if the right opportunity like is there, but it's something I definitely need to work on more.
You know, that's what kills me. It's like two of the last three headliners that Greg Bogus had as Mondo Comedy, dude, they're doing 40-minute sets, 10 minutes of material, 30 minutes of just free-forming it, just wrapping it around.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah. And look, they got their go-to this, you know, hey, what do you do for a living? I do this. Well, they got the stock answers, but at the same time, you know, I mean, one of Greg's Mondo comedies, one of the first two or three back. And look, everything was slow coming out of the pandemic. People didn't know the shows were back up and running. People weren't ready to go out to shows. I mean, the last two shows that Greg had absolutely packed, like standing room only packed. It was great. Oh, by the way, were you there? Were you there last month, Mike? Because praise went up.
No, I wasn't. I would have loved to see that. Praise
dude,
is awesome.
I was really so good. Pissed at him, dude. I didn't know who the hell that guy was. Like he got off stage, and this is Biff. This is a kid. He's a funny kid, and I've seen him 5, 6, 7 times. He co-hosted one of the mics that Mike and I did. Funny guy. Holy shit! This night, and I said, I'm like, Praise, I have no idea what the fuck you ate for dinner, but eat a lot more of that, you motherfucker. I mean, he fucking killed. Absolutely killed, you know. But those shows, Mike, packed. But the first couple shows coming back out of the pandemic, we're talking 8 people in that room, 10 people. But there was one, blanking on his name, old guy. I mean, we're talking, and Biff, that's me saying old guy, you know. And he had nothing to work with but 40 minutes of free-forming crowd work with 8 people in the room and fucking killed it. And my buddy Joe and I, one of the other co-host of the show, Mike, is somebody I've been doing comedy projects with off and on since like early 90s. Written a lot of scripts together, produced maybe, I don't know, 50 episodes for a sketch comedy show, all this stuff. And we're sitting there watching this, and it's like, holy crap. Mike, do you have a process? Do you have okay, I gotta write, I gotta do this? Or, do you not have a process? Do you have a process? Do you just have a notebook or your phone next to you that you just record ideas? Or do you carve out time X number of times a week to just refine old stuff, work on new stuff?
I mean, I do and I don't have a process. It's all usually through my phone. I bought a notebook. I've been trying to write more in a notebook, but then again, I just leave them at places. Like, I've lost so many notebooks already. I can imagine only who finds those notebooks with just random thoughts about and shit. Who knows what else?
I mean, is somebody finding one of your notebooks thinking, man, some funny motherfucker left this behind, or is like, oh my God, let's hope this guy doesn't vote.
Do I need to call Homeland Security?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly that.
Because there's been times like, we've all done it. You're falling asleep and you think, oh my God, I'm going to get up and work on this. And then you don't, you can't remember. But then there's those times when I've kept the notebook next to the bed and I've written stuff in it. And I get up in the morning and I'm like, what the fuck was this? Like, is this I've never done drugs, but I'm like, maybe I have. You know what I mean? I mean, is this a fever? What the fuck were you talking about to myself, let alone some poor fuck who picks it up and sees it, you know? Because I thought that, like, recently I have a stack of index cards and I ended up dropping it in the car, but for like 2 days, I'm like, did I leave it at one of the two places I did? And who the hell's going to look at these, you know, it's just the name of the bits. It's just the name of the bits and maybe one keyword to trigger something. And I'm like, who's going to look at that and say, oh my God, we got to find this person. They need help. They need to be on a watch list. But going forward, when you talk about like not having a plan, but kind of having some goals, do you got a 15-minute set in you? Do you got 2 15-minute sets in you? Like what do you have now that, like, if you had to go up for the fate of the free world rested on you doing 15 great minutes somewhere, and then you had to turn around and do 15 different minutes somewhere else? Do you have those? Are you working on those? Where are you with that?
Yeah, I could do the 15. The second 15 could probably get accomplished, but wouldn't be great.
I mean,
But
30
yeah,
minutes
I've
is a
done
lot of
15
time.
a few times before, and it's worked out well.
You know, and I'll leave this part in or I'll edit it out. Like, usually, you know, when we've had comics on, like, I come in with like a minute of their material and go out with a couple minutes of the material. If you feel comfortable doing that, and if you do without saying anything but you know, that would give anything away, I'll just say Division 3 power forward. Like, dude, every fucking time I hear that, I'm like, oh, fuck this guy. That, because you paint, I see at the end of the joke kind of what you build to. I see somebody showing up at a dorm room, and then and then your whole other thing, it's like, I used the J word, you know, and like last night when you did that at especially at coffee, dude, that got a huge laugh in that room. That got a huge laugh in that room last night when you did that whole bit. So I don't know if you feel good, but
Yeah,
Mike does.
I would, and I do that. Yeah, and I taped the set from Coffee, so I think I could send that to you with that one at least. I'd have to look if I have. I don't know if I have the.
Well, we got a couple. We got a couple weeks, because, you know, this will drop a week from this Monday. But, you know, those, and it's funny. So Biff, I told. You know, I told Mike, you know, really honestly, when we're going back in text, like, you know, last week, you know, I'm so painfully new to this, but at the same time, I'm not. You know, I did,
Right.
you know, I did stand up, you know, in the '90s, and I've just been around, and I've worked on TV shows and all this shit. Even, I'm like a coach. You know, those who can do, those who can't teach. I'm a, you know,
Right.
and I honestly told Mike, you know, what I'm going to say now to, you know, in front of him, and hope I don't embarrass him. There's only about 10% of people that I see that I'm like, keep with this. You know what I mean? You are on to something here. I would never tell anybody to stop. I'm not Joe. You know,
I only told you to stop.
You know, but I mean, there's some people, and you know, Mike will tell you, there's some people who, dude, you fucking drove an hour to get here. You've been waiting an hour and 20 minutes to go up. You get up there and you're either too stoned. And I can't tell you how many people get up there. It's like, dude, I'm too stoned. I don't know what I was going to say. I'll talk about this for a minute. And I'm like, dude, you really, you have so little going on in your world that you sacrifice 3 to 4 hours of your night to do this for 2 minutes and then say, yeah, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? But there are, you know, and there's people who have well-constructed jokes. There are people who have, you know, and there are, and I'm going to say last night between the two places that Mike and I were together, this coffee shop called Coffee and Cotton inside Mill Number 5 in Lowell. And then we pulled the double header, went to another state, Biff, because that's our fucking commitment level.
Yeah, Bogus's thing?
Nope. This was Bogus is a book thing, but another open mic 45 minutes away in Manchester, and another 20 guys. And out of like, I'm dead serious, the 20 guys at one and the 15, 20 people at the other, there's 4 or 5 people. I'm like, okay, I hope this person in a year keeps slogging through, keeps going to the fucking horrible mics, keeps bombing at places that, no matter how good they are, this isn't their audience, but they put in the time and get their cadence and they get their pacing and they work through this. And Mike is one of those guys. There's 10% of people who are like, yep, they got the material, they got the voice, they got the cadence, they got this. They're putting the pieces together. I see where it's going. There's about another 10%. It's like, okay, it's a Lego set. Everything's in that box, and it can be something. Right. But Mike is in that 10% of people I've been seeing over the last like 5-6 months, and I'm like, yeah, it sucks. Everything about doing this at this level sucks. The best day of doing it sucks because you drove. You had to go through like 15 people. It's a school night. It's a job night. It's all of these things, but he definitely has the material, which is, you can, there's a couple guys who have fucking presence, who have personality, who have those things. Ain't funny. Then there's some people who, dude, that person's a great comedy writer. That person should be in a room writing comedy for other people. And then there's, the people like Mike. And also, Mike has a skill set, and I do not have this skill set. I've seen Mike host a show. That's probably hard. Mike, how hard was it when you got up and you were hosting at Safe?
I want to just thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. That all means a lot. Coming from someone funny as you are, dude, that means the world, man.
He's lying. Look, Mike. Biff has known me for 25 years. Biff has been on more 8-hour car rides through the desert listening to my show. He knows how funny I ain't. So thanks for trying, but you ain't fooling anybody. No, but when you host it, that's a different muscle altogether. That's a different energy. And you did well. I mean, what did you prepare to do it, or were you just free-forming it that night?
I was just kind of winging it. I mean, Ren's always like grabbing up co-hosts lately, but Ren does an excellent job at it. And I had tried it before. I thank you for saying that. I don't think I'm the best host. I don't know. You can tell by my voice right now. I'm not really the most, kind of monotone, and I'm not the most energetic, And sometimes when I think of hosts, I think of that, getting the people up. But I mean, I try to like go up there and just try to riff on what the last person said, really, and that's how I think I can kind of do good at it. But
yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's a different skill, and there's some people, again, my friend Sally, she is one fucking hell of a stand-up. I saw her MC a show. I had no idea how funny she was. I mean, I've seen her stand up. I've actually worked on comedy, a sketch comedy thing with her. But when I saw her hosting, and she did exactly that, she's pulling 10, 15 seconds out of the last person's bit, workshopping it, turning around, making something of it before calling the next person up. Dude, she had like 15 people go up. That's a fucking skill and a half.
Yeah.
And so, Mike, how so the places you went last night, your regulars there, you go out 3 or 4. How often do you try to go to a mic you don't know anybody, or that you haven't been before, to kind of get out of a comfort zone?
I got to do that a lot more. New mics pop up here and there too. Like I think I was telling you, there's a great new one on Tuesdays that I'm sometimes able to double up on, but I really need to do that more. The great thing about where we live, I mean, it's not that great. Being in Lowell, it's not the greatest, but kind of.
How dare you? How dare you, sir? How dare you?
It is a city, but we are luckily. I always say Lowell's 40 minutes away from everything, so there is a good scene out west in Worcester, and it really takes 40-45 minutes to go there. Manchester is a really fucking awesome scene. I used to go up to Manchester like 3-4 nights a week just to hit mics. Like they have mics 4 nights a week up there, and that's 40 minutes away. And Boston is 30, 40 minutes away. South Shore is a little further than that, but yeah, I mean,
So it's funny you mentioned Worcester because during the pandemic, my buddy Joe and I were looking, for open mic, or just before the pandemic, because long story short, I've already told Mike and Biff know. Well, Biff's gone to some of the sports events I've done that I was telling you about. It's like Biff, well. It wasn't a my sport event, but Biff and I went to the 2010 Olympics, but he's come to one of the NFL things and a NASCAR thing that I've done. I do some armed forces stuff and some USO stuff, and I'm going to have to host and do these things. So that's what started me back in this. Like reluctantly, a few years ago, just before I was supposed to go on 6 tours in 2020 with a filmmaker buddy of mine, and I couldn't find any open mics anywhere. I mean, it's funny. I was driving to my parents'. And on the way, there's a little bar restaurant, and it's like open mic on Tuesday, no drummers, no comedians. And I'm like, well, and I'm a drummer in a punk band, Mike. And I'm like, why didn't the sign just say "fuck off, Jacques"? Open mic, fuck. But we could. But now, so my wife goes to see a show at Ralph's this past summer, and she comes home and goes, "Oh, they have." I just saw the flyer on the wall there on Tuesday. And so I have a buddy who lives in the area, and we met there on Tuesdays. And then after 2 or 3 mics, I heard, oh, there's another one here. And you're right, Mike, there is a quote unquote scene in Worcester where there's 5 or 6 well-known mics. And I've done mics at 4 places out there. And what's funny is I'm going to say, there's 10 core guys that I'll see 7 or 8 of those guys. And it's always guys. I've seen, if I've done 20 open mics in Worcester in the last 5 months, you can count the number of women or people of color on one hand. I talk about it on the podcast, Mike. I call it, the Proud Boy light punching down comedy hour. Wow. where somebody's going to get up, unfortunately, who looks like me or you, right? You know what I mean? Like a mid 30s guy, who within the first 30 seconds is doubling down on misogyny, homophobia, like just the war. I mean, and one guy who runs a mic, like there was a woman there a few weeks ago. Her stuff was good. It wasn't going to fly in the room. She basically leaves in tears, and he's joking as she's going. It's like, we haven't. He's like, oh, ever since I've been running this mic, we've not had a woman come back twice. And I'm like thinking, that's not a badge of, and that's the same guy who told me about the safe. The first time I walk into a safe, on the website, it says 9 to midnight. It's 9 to 1. It's open. So I show up at 8:30 thinking I'm early. It starts at 8:30. I'm coming down the steps, Biff. There's maybe 2 or 3 women comedians. There's maybe 4 or 5 black dudes. There was a transgender woman went up that night that fucking killed. Absolutely killed. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to make an effort to get to all of these. And what's funny, Mike, do you get out to Worcester much? Do you know the mics out at Worcester, either at Ralph's or Hitching Post or Beth's?
Yeah, it's actually funny what you were saying about not being women there. I don't think the mic's going on anymore, but there was this mic that I used to go to, and I don't know Worcester that great, So like I park somewhere, I get inside the place to go to the mic, and I'm like, where's the best place to park around here? And one of the comics is just like, oh, just park at the Planned Parenthood place right behind
wow.
you. And then I go back there, and I don't know if they were both Planned Parenthood. There was more than one Planned Parenthood place at the same street, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Wormtown is a bros town.
It is, dude.
I didn't realize, I spent a little bit of time there. I didn't realize, I didn't really realize that when I was there. So.
Yeah, but you were on assignment. You know what I mean? You weren't.
I get it.
You went to Ralph's and stuff, but but that's more. And that
was because that was the only thing open.
Right, and the guy who hosts that mic is and it's funny. I've something about Worcester, and tell me if you've noticed the same thing, Mike. Like people are clawing to be like king of Worcester. Like They don't, like, I've talked to a couple guys at the mics because you're there early and stuff. And I've talked to people who are like, look, I like talking to people. And Mike, I do a lot of like consulting with businesses and stuff like that. And different, hey, what do you do? Where's it going? I mean, I listen to podcasts about how I built this and, companies and stuff. I like talking to people. It's like, why are you doing this? Where are you going with this? What's happened? And the number of guys who have been like, yeah, in a year or so, I hope to be a regular at, and they'll mention like one or two breweries that do a book show, like their version of Mondo Comedy type thing. And that's it. Like that, they're like, yeah, if I could do that, that's reaching for the sky, man. That's, and a few of the
Palladium. Is the Palladium still around even?
No, actually, the Palladium is, and Biff, I am going to the Palladium in a few weeks to see Tragedy and Metal School. I'm sorry, Steel Panther. Steel Panther,
yeah.
But no, I mean, Mike, these guys are like Navigation Brewery. There's a couple of those in Worcester to do a monthly show, and these guys, it's like they're clawing to get that, and that's what, and the number of the guys who don't have license. You know what I mean? It's like, or it is. It's just Worcester. I go to Worcester. I've been going there because of the double mic. Because on Monday I can hit Hitching Post at 7 and get over to Beth's at 8:30. But now, like you said, Mike, there's so many more mics. The mic in Somerville you're talking about, that Nick Hahn? Am I?
Oh yeah, in Somerville, Nick Hahn and Paul Boric.
And then so it's funny because when I was at Mondo Comedy, somebody mentioned, have you ever done the Jungle in Somerville?
Yeah. I haven't been there in a while, but yeah.
So I don't know if I just hit it on a certain night, but last Tuesday, Biff, I couldn't get out of the house. My whole thing is like, if I get up first, second, or third at the safe, and my rule of thumb, look, I'm staying for 3 or 4 people after me. If I'm fourth or fifth, and I'm always going to stay for a few, but I can still get out, go drive for 40 minutes, and hit another mic. But I couldn't get out of the house. I get to the safe. I'm 18th on the list, which means you're really 19th because the host does 5 minutes first. I'm like, okay, that's 6 minutes with the changing of each comic in between. They're 5 minutes,
hours, right?
So I do the math. I'm like, you know what? That list doesn't go out till 9 in Somerville. So if I leave now instead of doing this, I'll go there. I'll get home at the same time, but I'll have the benefit of doing a mic I've never done and a room I don't know. So, Mike, I don't know if when you went out there, it was any different. I
remember going out to Worcester for like work and stuff. And I mean, Lowell's not a great place either. I mean, I love it. I go around like Boston and stuff, and I mean, Lowell's a punchline in itself. Like I don't, people laugh just saying I'm from Lowell, but going out to Worcester, man, it's like seeing the people, or like the street people, like you drive by and just see the people walking down the street. It's like a time warp. They're like from the 90s. Like I swear to God, I saw people wearing like a Bugle Boy shirt or fucking it's like
Bugle Boy.
When we first moved back to this country, I as a favor ran the arena football team for a season.
Right. Yeah,
and I they called somebody. I don't know how they got my number, but they called and I went in thinking I'm going to have a meeting. I'm going to consult on game day entertainment. That's all it was. I drove out there thinking it's going to be a consult, and then after about like 20 minutes, like the owner's like, okay, so are you in? I'm like, in on what? It's like, and then I ran the whole team, and I got to know some Worcester people, and oh my God, Mike, you fucking call it. It's like, Biff, I don't know if you know AAF, but my wife always joked about this radio station. Every fucking time we would come back from LA, it's the same 8 songs. It stopped. Worcester stopped, and not in the cool part of the 90s. It's like 90, after the cool opening, when the 80s bled into the early 90s, and new wave became grunge, but then gave way to like Hootie and the Blowfish. That's Worcester is a Hootie in the Blowfish phase
Wow.
of that. No, but
Wow.
Mike, with the jungle, I went out the other night, and I don't know when you did the jungle, it wasn't officially a gay mic, but it was unofficially a gay mic the other night. And
yeah.
and so I walked in the place. It's tiny, a lot of pride flags, very comfortable, a lot of great looking young dudes. And I'm sitting there, and the first guy goes up. Yep, all about being gay. Like the first 4 or 5 people who went up, it's all about, so I'm on Grindr the other day, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking at my set list. I'm thinking, okay, this is all jokes about how awful my kids are, and having discussions with my wife of 20 years, who has a vagina. And I'm like thinking, this isn't going to fly. And the guy who went up before me, plus the mic was dead. Mike, it was brilliant. It was the guy who went up before me, friends with the host. She's joking with him before he comes up. She says he has a big show coming up at Midway Cafe. He's headlining, blah, blah, blah. Dude, he gets up there, and thankfully his first 15, 20 seconds is telling the people in the back of the room to shut the fuck up. Because I mean, it's a small room. It was busy, but you could hear the people at the bar chattering more than on the day. And I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to be the asshole who does that this time. And then he does a joke. It's good. Crickets. He does a joke. He does 2 minutes, 2.5 at best. He's like, you know what? I'm done. And even the host, she's over at the bar getting a drink. She's not ready to do the handoff. And then when she comes up to the mic, she goes, well, go see him next week or whatever. It's going to be 3 times longer than that. It's a half-hour set. And then I have to go up. And it's like, I knew it was going to be awful. And I was texting Joe, and I'm like, and I put it on Instagram. I'm like, okay. Before I went in, I'm like, hey, blah, 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 this is blah, blah. And then afterwards, I put like a meme of a cartoon airplane on fire going down. The only joke that landed was the opening one when I'm like, look, I know you're all looking at me like you're disapproving dad. Let's get something. I'm like, let's get something straight. Unless your mom went to Fitchburg State and had large breasts in the early 90s, I'm not your dad. Now, I am disapproving. Don't get me wrong, and that got a laugh. And then I'm like, you know what? I got this thing coming up. I'm doing Bogus's show in a couple weeks, and I need to get these bits down in my head, and I need to get the cadence, and I record it, and I'm spacing it, and I'm like, okay, this is a 45-second thing with 3 swings at the bat, and it's like, so that, but. Have you had those, Mike, where you just know your stuff and that room ain't going to work, but you go through the motions?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing about Boston too. Boston rooms could be weird. You just kind of got to feel out the room and stuff too. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. Even kind of just comedy wise, I don't know. Just me. Just thinking of comedy, you always think of the Boston comedians like, oh, I don't know, fill in the blank, fucking Louis. You were saying you're familiar with Dennis Leary, fucking just like, I don't know, but you think of the stereotypical Boston towny guy, and then you go to the city, and then it's just college kids from fucking all over the country, and that's what I mean, a lot of the audiences on book shows are. It's just
No, it is funny. Like you said, Lowell is 45 minutes from everywhere, but everywhere, Worcester is completely different than if Worcester is 40 minutes to the west, Boston's 40 minutes to the east, and it's like going to different countries as far as mics go. You go up, you go 40 minutes to Manchester, New Hampshire, and kind of that's the good thing. You're hitting all these different mics, and it is not from mic to mic to mic. Well, the mics in Worcester are similar. The mics here are similar. The mics there, but it's nice that you can hit basically 5 different regional mics if you're willing to drive 45 minutes. Do you have like 2 or 3 favorite mics that you like that you really try not to miss, Mike?
Yeah, that'd be the Safe on Tuesdays in Lowell, and probably Strange Brew on Thursdays last night. And I was gonna say, when you were talking about different things to say, that's one of the reasons I think Manchester is kind of cool. And trust me, I'm apolitical. I don't give a damn about anyone's politics. If anything, but New Hampshire is kind of red state-ish. And say what you will, say what you like. One of the good things about conservative people is you get to let it hang a little more. Like the people in New Hampshire sometimes are more willing to go on a ride with you, if you're working something out, or it might not be the most PC thing, like you said. I mean, Boston and Massachusetts is literally known as the most liberal state in the union. We do have our towny assholes, but then we are the most liberal state in the union. So, it's all dependent on what kind of material you're doing too,
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we will let you get going to whatever madness you have planned on. No, actually, I'll ask you one more question.
Yeah.
When you have those nights where you're home from work, it's cold, and it's just you're settled in. You're fucking settled in. It's 6:30. It's 6:45. There's a Bruins game on. There's a Celtics game on. What do you use to say, okay, there's no reason for me to leave this warm house
Right.
where there's a comfy chair, where the game's going on, where there's food in the fridge, so I can slog across town, and hang out for 3 hours with dumb old fucks like me, with long setups that go nowhere, so that you can tell you're 5. What do you use to get yourself out of the house and into the car on those days?
I don't know. It is kind of like my hobby. Like I said, trust me, it's all wishful thinking and maybe delusions of grandeur. I would like to make a living of it, but right now it is my hobby. And like I said, I'm 35. A bunch of my friends, they're in fucking beer league softball, or fucking pool leagues and dart leagues and shit. If they're not just full-time parents and their kids are their lives, it's where I am right now. I'm 35, single with no kids, and stand-up comedy is my hobby. So, if I'm not doing that, it's probably not being productive at home, doing nothing, unless maybe I am writing. But yeah, unless I maybe do join a beer league, softball league.
So say that part about being 35 without kids again one more time, just because I just want to let that euphoria wave. Oh, those were the days. So, because we didn't start pushing out dream squashers until I was 40. So,
wow,
almost
so
40.
it is possible. I'm thinking I'm over here shooting blanks. Jesus.
Oh God, no, seriously, it's like, it's like, but no, Mike, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Also, first of all, you were one of the first dudes at those mics who kind of, I don't know anybody in those rooms. I am. To be honestly, I'm old enough to be your dad. I'm old enough to be almost no, seriously, I'm old enough to be almost everybody's dad in there. Biff. It's just the way it is. But Mike was one of the first guys who came over and just chatted me up. And a couple of weeks go by, and like I said, then last night, we hit 2 mics. Together, which is nice to be able to kind of, and the Mike in Manchester, he's like, I hadn't been to it before, and he's like, nope, definitely, it's worth the drive up. So thank you for your kindness, thank you for your friendship, and seriously, thanks for being one of the funny motherfuckers. I mean, you make it fun to go to the mics, Mike.
Knock him dead, Mike.
No. Thank you. Thank both of you guys for having me on this tonight. This is awesome, man. I'd do it again anytime too. And man, thank you. I try to be chill with everyone, and especially meeting new people. I mean, we're all the same, similar type of people, there might be a few outliers here and there, but I don't know. All comedians are really kind of the same personality archetype, we're probably more similar in ways than we're not, so I don't know.
Right. No, it is true. There's traits. We're all dicks. We're all dicks with unwarranted overconfidence, yet a hint of self-loathing. You know what I mean? Or at least the good ones. All right, this was great. And everybody, it's important to not forget.
I'm a big sports guy. Sports guy, degenerate gambler, whatever you want to call it. We're here in my Mecca, New Hampshire. Like Ben said, I live in Lowell. I do. I happen to live a mile away from the Pelham border in New Hampshire. So, you know, I can't legally bet in Mass, but I can go to McDonald's and loiter in the parking lot and steal Wi-Fi, and it's 100% legal. But, you know, getting off on tangents here. But yeah, I'm a sports guy. I like college sports, you know. I like college sports because I want to know if I'm going to send a death threat, I want to make sure that thing gets through. For real, because whatever intern at Nike that's running LeBron's account, he ain't seeing all the knife emojis I'm sending them when you don't cover a point spread. But the small forward for the UNH basketball team, he don't take a dive. He's fucking hearing from me. Oh, really? Your major happens to be sports medicine. What a coincidence. I'm going to be waiting outside your dorm with a bat. We'll see what we can do about this.